Health and sickness vocabulary today. There's a lot of vocabulary in this topic, so I can't cover everything, but I'm going to do my best to get some good vocab. So we often call the doctor the GP. Your local family doctor is your GP, and you sign up, you register with a local doctor. If you go to the doctor's and he decides that you need some kind of medicine, he will give you a prescription. And you take your prescription to the chemist's, or it's also known as the pharmacy. In America they often say drugstore, but these two really in England, chemist or pharmacy. And don't mix up prescription with receipt, which is what you get when you go to a shop and they give you a receipt for the items that you have bought. Or recipe, which is when you cook something tasty for dinner and the recipe is the list of ingredients which you must use. So prescription, please, for medicine. You take medicine, you take antibiotics, you can take painkillers. Painkillers are obviously there to get rid of pain, so perhaps Nurofen or something like that, but you could also take antibiotics if you have some kind of infection. And that's another good word there. To be an infection is some kind of virus. An infection. And we can also say to be, or to be infected with a disease. To be infected with. And then say the disease which the person is infected with. Okay, let's carry on to, they may give you an injection, so you can give someone an injection, or you can have an injection. It's also called a jab, especially with flu. They talk about a flu jab, which is a bit like a flu vaccination. So vaccination is another good word here. I'm not sure if it's 1 C or 2 C's, please check that. In fact, no, I'm not sure. I'm going to go with 2, but I'm not sure. Please check it. Okay, you can also have an operation, which is where the surgeon, and remember that's the type of doctor who gives you an operation. He's called a surgeon, and he uses a knife called a scalpel to cut you open and give you an operation. So you may have an operation, and hopefully he will give you an anesthetic first. Now you can have a local anesthetic or a general anesthetic. General is obviously when you fall asleep, you fall unconscious. And there's another good word for down here, unconscious. When you're not awake, but you're not just not awake, you're completely unconscious. Sorry, unconscious. Okay, so you may have a local anaesthetic, you may have a general anaesthetic. Local would be when you go to the dentist and they give you a local anaesthetic for your jaw so that you can't feel it when they take your tooth out. Okay, some medicines will have side effects. They'll have you may have an adverse reaction to the medicine. So all sorts of side effects or adverse reactions are possible. You may start vomiting. You may have an excruciating pain in a part of your body. You may start bleeding from the nose. Who knows? But these are possible side effects. Here we have some symptoms. We have to sneeze, to cough, to vomit. You can also say be sick for that one, for vomit, and you can also use the phrasal verb throw up. To bleed, so when blood comes out of your body. You could have diarrhea, which means you have to go to the toilet a lot. It's very uncomfortable. Nobody likes that. You can also sweat a lot. If you're sick, you've got flu, you may be perspiring at an increased rate. You may be sweating much more than you usually do. If you're really sick, you might faint. Now, you can faint maybe if you're in a hot place. Maybe you're on the metro and it's overcrowded and there's no oxygen, there's no air, it's really stuffy, and you faint. There is a phrasal verb for faint. It's pass out. Okay, you could feel dizzy. You usually feel dizzy before you faint. Dizzy just means you feel like your head is spinning. Now, these are more kind of sporting injuries. If your ankle is swollen, then that means that this part of your body, the ankle, which is down here under the leg before the foot, gets bigger. the blood goes under the skin and it gets bigger. So we say it is swollen when it's bigger like that. It's not very nice. It means it's very painful. You can sprain your ankle, which means twist it. You could sprain your wrist as well, because this is your wrist, and you might sprain it if you twist it. You might pull a muscle. I pulled a muscle in my neck quite a long time ago now, and I remember it was agony. It was an excruciating pain every time I went to bed. I couldn't really move that muscle in my neck, and when I was breathing it really hurt. So I never want to do that again, and whenever I play football I always try and warm up my neck muscles. Okay, you could have a high blood pressure or low blood pressure. This is obviously about the pressure of the blood. Yeah, and it's connected to the heart, the health of the heart. When you're eating, unfortunately, it's possible to choke on small objects, which means they get stuck in your throat, and it's very dangerous. People obviously die of choking, and remember that's the collocation, die of choking. That's the preposition. Okay, if you have a seizure or have a fit, I think people do often say fit. It's when you lose control of your body. It's connected to the condition of epilepsy, and I'm not really sure. I don't know much about this, but I only know it's when I've seen someone have a seizure, and it's very scary because they seem to lose control of their body. And yeah, I'm not really sure about. I don't know much about it, but it's certainly something which can happen if you have epilepsy. Nauseous means you feel sick. That's all it means. Nausea is a sick feeling in your stomach, so you feel sick. Constipation is when you can't go to toilet, so it's also very uncomfortable. Nobody really likes that. To have a heart attack is very serious. Obviously, a lot of people die of heart attacks. And to have a stroke is also very serious. This is connected to the brain, not the heart, the stroke. It's when half of the brain kind of closes or shuts down. Cancer is the big killer nowadays. I think a lot of people die of cancer. And you can have cancer of the skin, cancer of the blood, cancer of the lung cancer. You can get cancer in a lot of different organs of the body. Food poisoning is when you have some kind of virus or bacteria in the food, or maybe actual poison in the food, but I think often it's a case of poor hygiene here, and it can lead to really bad symptoms. People can vomit and have diarrhea. I think they often have diarrhea when they have food poisoning. They often vomit, and it often happens after eating some poorly prepared food. Premature death means early death. It means dying early, usually for some kind of bad reason, obviously. Okay, a rash is when you are it often happens when you're allergic to something, and it's kind of red marks on the skin, maybe on your arms, maybe on your body, maybe somewhere else. But if you change your washing powder and you're allergic to the new washing powder, you may get a rash on your skin. That's where the rash happens. It only happens on the skin. Now, the blister is also something which happens on the skin, but this usually is when you play sport, and maybe your shoes are a bit, your football boots are a bit small. This happened to me. I always had a blister on the back of my foot. But maybe you play tennis, then you'll get a blister on your hand where you hold the tennis racket and where it rubs against the skin. And so nobody likes a blister, but they're not terrible. A bruise you might get if somebody punches you, or if you fall over. You might get a bruise on your knee or a bruise on your elbow, and it's the blood under the skin again. It's the colour though. This is where you get a different colour skin because of the time you got hit, and so you get a bruise. The blood comes under the skin. An excruciating pain means a very, very severe pain. It means a really awful pain. So it's a word which collocates very well with pain. But you can say a sharp pain, a severe pain. There are a number of other adjectives you can use. You can have a sore throat, have a stomachache, have flu. You can have a serious wound or injury. These are all really collocations that work well with health vocab. You can be critically ill, which means seriously ill, but you could also be terminally ill, which means that unfortunately your condition won't get better and you will die of this condition. Now, you can go to the hospital for treatment, which means when the doctors and nurses are trying to help you, they're trying to look after you, giving you medicine. And so they treat your condition. But they may not be able to cure your condition. Cure is when you get completely better. So if there's some kind of medicine which is a cure for your disease, the doctors will give you this cure and you'll get completely better. They'll treat you and cure you. So cure is very good because it means you're happy at the end of it. You're not sick. Treat, they can treat you and you might get worse. It's possible. Heal is the word we usually use for cuts. For example, the cut, he got cut on his arm and after 3 weeks it healed. Okay, so a cut can heal, it gets better, and you know, it scabs over and it gets better over many weeks. Secondly, because there are two meanings for this word, you can also heal someone if you're a spiritual person, like perhaps Jesus healed the sick. We use it there as well. We don't say Jesus treated the sick. We say Jesus healed the sick. And so it's also used for some kind of spiritual practices, or maybe even alternative medicine, that kind of thing, where somebody using some kind of spiritual method heals you. Now, I think I've forgotten these ones, so I better go through it. A ward is a room in a hospital. It's where you are treated. If you break your arm or break your leg, they may put it in plaster. Now, remember, plaster's got two meanings, because a plaster on a cut is just one of those little plaster things. But if you have your arm in plaster, it means you have a hard plaster cast put around your arm, and it's because you've broken the bone. It's to help the bone set back into place and protect it, I suppose, as well. I've never had my arm in plaster, fortunately, or my leg. But if your leg's in plaster, you may have to use crutches. Yeah, which are those sticks on the end of your arms which you use to walk when you've got a broken leg. You may even need a wheelchair if it's really, really serious. And obviously disabled people will need a wheelchair. Now, I think that's most things. I'll quickly do the phrasal verbs. Get over means make a full recovery. So he got over flu last week. It means he made a full recovery from flu. Suffer from flu. I think that's clear. You suffer. It gives you some kind of problem. It's hurting you. You die of a condition or a disease. You can sometimes you use from, by the way, there, but it's quite complex, the reason we use die of and die from. I'd normally say he died of cancer, but sometimes I think people do say he died from cancer, so they're pretty interchangeable. Pass out, it means faint or lose consciousness. It's just there, faint, lose consciousness. Throw up means vomit. It's also over here. Break out, a disease can break out. You can say flu has broken out in several schools in the southwest, but any diseases can break out as well. And also you can break out in a sweat, which means you suddenly start sweating. Okay, you can go down with flu, you can go down with a cold. By the way, if we say I, though, we normally use I with come. You can't say I went down with, I went down with flu last week. Actually, it sounds all right to me. Now I say it to myself. Yeah, okay. Perhaps come sounds better with I, but I don't see any problem with I went down with flu last week. But use go down with for other people, and stitch something up. You get stitches when you get a really deep cut. So the doctor stitches you up when you have some kind of really deep cut. Okay, if you have any questions about this, perhaps about this one, which I don't know if I made that very clear, I don't suppose I did, or this one, ask me under the video and I'll be glad to answer your questions. I hope this has helped you, and I hope to see you all soon.